So this thing that I'm holding here is the PCB carrier board for the MPC Key 37. So it's all soldered onto one board, and the reason I have it like this, it has no RAM chips or anything, is because I was working on this for a client and I messed up. I think I overheated the CPU. What was happening is the RAM swap was successful, but once I started using it, the buttons would not work at all. And then after a while, the console, the keys would just shut off. So what I did, I was testing things for a while. I was trying to see what was wrong, to the point where I was like reflowing the chips and doing a bunch of stuff. That's why it looks all nasty. And the more I did to it, the more it became faulty. The screen, the image, everything would start looking very blocky, like you would see artifacting, to the point where eventually it just stopped turning on completely. So I concluded that I guess this CPU chip here, the rock chip, I guess I overheated it. So what I'm gonna try to do right now is I'm gonna try to replace this one with a new one, and hopefully that fixes the issue, because then I saved myself $1,000. I had to buy the client another keys. I upgraded that one, it worked fine. I was more careful, but I lost $1,000 in the process. So I'm trying to revive this one and hopefully get my money back. So what you see me doing here is that I'm taking off the excess solder from the pads, because I'm gonna get it ready for the 4 gigabytes of RAM. Since I don't want to install it after reinstalling the CPU, because it's going to put more heat strain on it, and I don't want to risk messing up twice. So that's what you're seeing me do here. So I forgot to mention this, but I'm using a preheater. It's a blue matte, pretty much used for phones and tablets. The reason I'm doing this time is because I've learned that preheating the board before doing any solder work is much safer, because it'll help the solder flow much faster without putting strain on the board itself. So now I'm soldering in the RAM chips. I usually don't take this long with it, but since I was kind of like traumatized from messing up last time, I decided to take my time with it, going a little bit slower. I'm using less air and less heat than before. What I recommend is like maybe doing this, and once you feel that the RAM chips are like in place and they're not moving anymore, I would go with more air. My cat. I would go with more air, just so it can flow perfectly, and you'll see it move. If you move the nozzle around, and you'll see the chips kind of dance if they're flowed correctly. So I start with 60 air, 360 hot air, and then after it's on there and it's not moving anymore, I turn my air up to 120. I'm using a quick hot air workstation, by the way. Just out of curiosity, I started checking the pins, just to see if like maybe the reason that the CPU or the the whole device wasn't working anymore was because of some warping that had happened, but I checked like a couple of them and I decided that it was fine. By the way, the chip that I'm going to solder on right now is actually called an APU, not a CPU, but I'm just used to saying CPU. APU would be a processor and the graphics tied into one, which that's what the rock chip is. So since this APU is already damaged, I'm not really too worried about putting a lot of heat on it. But I went with 400 heat, 400C, actually 400F, and with 60 air, and that was enough to like get it off. And the reason I put tin foil all around it is just because I've seen people do that. I figured I'd do it too. I think it might help with keeping the hot air away from the other components, or keeping the board hotter for longer, since maybe the hot air would be contained. But to be honest, I'm not really sure what benefits it has. I'm just assuming that's what it would help with. Oh, and for the APU right now, I used leaded solder, because leaded solder flows quicker with less hot air. It flows at about 180 C as opposed to lead-free solder, which I think is like 200, around there, 200 something, 230 maybe, 280, I forget, but you can look it up. And using lead solder would be better for doing like CPU, GPU, APU stuff, which is more sensitive to heat than other components, so it'll flow quicker and you'll put less strain on it. So I finished putting the new APU on and I'm cooling off the board. I'm gonna test it, but actually after like turning it on, it didn't work, which I suspected it wouldn't, only because I didn't really put enough, I didn't give it enough time for the solder to flow. I was just kind of being too careful, but I decided to go at it again. And I actually decided to still use 400F heat and 60 air while doing this, because I figured like as long as I control my distance, it should be fine. And as long as I don't keep it on there for like longer than 2 minutes, it'll be okay. I actually counted it, and I had the nozzle on the APU for about a minute and like 25 seconds. And after a while, like I was tapping it and then I saw it move, so then it was good to go. And right here you see it actually turned on. Like the flashing light means that it's actually working. I proceed to clean it with like 99% alcohol, just to get rid of all the excess flux and make it look nice. And what you see me doing here is I'm connecting it to UART to see if it actually boots, and also to verify that the 4 gigs is being read. And then you can see next to DRAM, it actually detects it for GIB. And I'm just letting it run through the boot up process, and it actually completes and gives me a login prompt. So at this point, it's like safe to say that it at least booted. The issue I was having before too was that it was actually booting, but then when I would connect all the keys and the buttons, nothing would work, just a screen, and then eventually it would just reset. So you saw there that it booted, so now I'm just going to put it back together and hope that all the buttons work. So if anyone's ever having issues with their MPC force, any of those, like if you're experiencing maybe the button's not working or it randomly shutting down on you and restarting, I'm gonna say that it's probably CPU related, only because it happened on this Keys 37. It would seem like it was working okay. Screen wise, the image was fine, but then eventually it would restart until I really looked closer, and then I could see artifacts on the screen, and then it stopped turning on after I messed with it too much. So eventually the CPU just died. So I guess you could, like, if you get an issue like that, you could probably say that it's a CPU. So I'm actually trying to get a hold of like more Force and MPC devices, just to kind of like figure out what's wrong with them and fix them and like find solutions for these things, because I have run across forums or Facebook group posts of people saying that their device stopped working and that a guy won't even service it or something like that. And I know that MPCstuff.com is the only company that's doing repairs right now, but even then I think they've been backed up. I heard from a client that they were backed up on work, and I guess they couldn't take in their device. So if I can find more of these, fix them, I can maybe make more videos and also offer decent prices on repairing them, because these are like $1,000 devices, and if you can get it repaired for like $300, then I guess you're saving a lot of money on that, like as opposed to buying another one or even a used one. Anyways, it works, so thanks for watching.